My name is Michelle Demir, and I am one of the heritage pioneers of Grand Junction. This is the third and final part of a series of 3 podcasts on the junction of the canals. This part 3 focuses on the canal bank sides, architecture, social history, Rembrandt gardens, and the canal junction today. The first Regency houses were erected in the 1840s, close to Warwick Avenue Bridge overlooking the Regent's Canal. On the east side of Browning's Pool, formerly Paddington Broadwater, was originally a track called Green Lane and later renamed Warwick Road before becoming Warwick Avenue, as seen on a street plan produced in 1825 by George Gooch, architect and surveyor to the Bishop of London. The character of the area was completely changed and became defined by its Regency-style white stucco buildings. Many roads were also laid down. The church commissioners owned many properties and saw that the clientele was either middle class or upper class. The exclusive John Nash Regency mansions, built along the Regent's Canal, elevated the status of the area, and examples of these can still be found on Bloomfield Road facing the canal pool. A description of a canal journey through Browning's Pool in 1885 reveals this opulence. Passing under Harrow Road Bridge, we burst into a silent sea of gentility, drearier in its assumption than all that has gone before. A pretentious terrace stretches away on either hand, faced with a make-believe massive balustrade, cracked and broken. The heavy houses fronting upon it are stuccoed shams, seamed and shabby. Its few disconsolate trees seem tired of keeping up appearances. The boaters writing in this passage showed their relief as they escaped this region of high-walled stucco gentility and entered the more normal world of warehouses, sawmills and foundries which made up Westbourne Green to the west and Paddington Wharves at the canal's southern terminus. The social history story goes that during the height of the Industrial Revolution, the area around the canal pool at Paddington Broadwater had become a dirty, run-down suburb of West London. Some comment that the small island at the centre of the canal pool was originally called Rats Island by locals. However, it is also argued that this is a myth perpetuated by the Inland Waterways Authority and tourism agencies to aid the perpetuation of a more dramatic social history. There is no historical record of the island at the canal junction ever being referred to as Rats Island, not even in novel Victorian depictions of the area. The later renaming to Browning's Island was felt to be a healthier, culturally derived name which would help raise the status of the area. Others suggest that the poet Lord Byron first compared the canal junction to Venice, resulting in the eventual name of Little Venice Basin. What is clear is that for 200 years, the canal junction has been at the heart of London's creative communities, and many of the greats of literature, music, art and film have been represented among the inhabitants of this neighbourhood. The period before the First World War was that of the richest days of the area. Unfortunately, during the First World War, roads south of the canal pool were bombed and many of the Regency houses were lost. Damage was caused by a bomb in Warrington Crescent, where in 1918 King George V and Queen Mary visited after 4 houses had been completely destroyed and 140 others nearby damaged. Warwick Crescent on the south of the canal pool had been composed of white stucco Regency houses, the majority of which were Grade 2 listed with Historic England. After the Second World War, Westminster Council decided to save Beauchamp Lodge on the southeast side of the canal pool that, following Browning's residency, had been used as a hostel for musicians for many years. Apart from the saved lodge, all of the Regency white stucco terraced houses that were on Warwick Crescent and Delamere Terrace were replaced by modern council flats. On the east side of Browning's Pool, later again renamed Little Venice Basin, is the canal side Rembrandt Gardens, sunken down from the road with views out over the canal junction. The public gardens are situated at the junction of Warwick Avenue and Harrow Road at the beginning of the Regent's Canal by Warwick Avenue Bridge. The garden was first laid out in the early 1950s when artists' studios on the east side of the canal pool along Warwick Avenue were demolished and replaced by this small public garden built upon the site of some derelict Italianate houses developed by John Nash in certain parts of Marylebone and Paddington. The original name of the public garden was Warwick Avenue Gardens. For their opening ceremony and sometimes afterwards, they had a footbridge connection across the Regent's Canal to the towpath on the Bloomfield Road side of the canal pool, in front of Warwick Avenue Bridge. In 1975, the public garden's name was changed when the City of Westminster was linked with the City of Amsterdam in Holland on the 700th anniversary of the founding of Amsterdam, the Venice of the North. Public walkways were opened on both sides of the canal around this time, and in 1978 the British Waterways Board lifted all restrictions on its towpaths. Previously, access to the towpaths had been restricted, and those who desired to walk along the canal had to obtain a towpath walking permit from the Waterways Board. Works to bring the garden up to modern standards were carried out in 2006, and the garden underwent a major upgrade of its infrastructure and horticultural features. Today, the canal side public garden has good views out over the canal junction. It is formal in feel and contains a lawn, rose garden, shrub borders and access to the canal towpaths. In the 20th century, most of the area still belonged to the church commissioners, who offered the freeholds of Georgian and Regency houses for sale in the 1970s and 80s, when many houses were bought by property companies and converted into luxury apartments. With decades of redevelopment and the renaming of canals and roads, came the addition of thousands of residential houses and flats, which replaced the derelict warehouses and factories along the canal, left behind when Britain's manufacturing industries declined. Today, the junction of the canals is called the Little Venice Basin, a scenic canal marina navigated by narrowboats and leisure boats and lined with temporary and permanent houseboats. The canal basin is home to several floating businesses, such as the Waterside Cafe, London Water Bus, a floating art gallery, puppet theatre barge and hotel boat. resting in an oasis of quirky waterside cafes, cosy pubs and charming restaurants. Former towpaths for horses have become footpaths for walkers, and it is now possible to walk the entire length of the Paddington Arm of the Grand Union Canal from the Paddington Basin to Uxbridge, a distance of around 12 miles. The recently redeveloped Paddington Basin is busier than ever, with canal towpaths popular with walkers, joggers, cyclists, tourists, office and retail workers using the Paddington Underground and Overground station entrance on the canal side. Rembrandt Gardens is a popular public garden for sunbathing and picnics, with locals and tourists enjoying narrowboat and wildlife spotting, fishing and summertime sunshine surrounded by flowers, trees, narrowboats and Regency architecture. All sorts of nature are nestled in among the canal basin. Moorhens, coots, tuft ducks and Egyptian geese are all common sights, as well as the usual swans and ducks. Many narrowboats and day trip boats line the basin, where the Regency mansions provide a stunning backdrop to the triangular pool, complete with willow tree. The former toll house on Westbourne Terrace Road is now a Canal and River Trust regional office for visitors to pick up information about the canal and local area that has always been somewhat avant-garde and continues to play a significant part in the capital's development, both economically and culturally. The area continues to be the home of many of Britain's most successful writers, artists, musicians, and the canal provides an important green corridor across London.